Today it's Sierra Hotel 1 Tango set Sunday, and so as ever when we're able to do these during a lockdown because there's no church, I can do another GT868. This time it's the Gecol. I didn't know until about 3 years ago that there's the 858 version. This is the 868 with the 4 knobs. The 858 is always the 2 knob version. And I didn't know there was an 858, but we managed to get one about 3 years ago. So that's going to be another forthcoming attraction. So this one, it's got a yellow sticker, so Mark's been through it, and it kind of works. If it's got a yellow sticker, it needs looking at. But this radio looks like it's been resprayed. It looks like it's had a new power lead. It's got a new mic to it. So I wonder if it's one that we've done and it's failed final test. But that was some years ago, so I've got absolutely no idea. So we'll open it up and we'll find out why it's here. And while I'm talking and unscrewing the radio, the main supplier of GT868 Gecols was Maplin's. Remember Maplin's before they went bust? High street and mail order place for electronic components and electronic gizmos. And in 1981 this was in their catalogue, and it was described as a high quality CB radio. And I wrote to Maplin's and I said, since when was a GT868 a high quality CB radio? And do you know what? They never replied to me. Wonder why that was. So this could have been rejected for all number of reasons. It could have been rejected because Mark felt the power was too low, or it was off frequency, or anything like that. But at least with the GT868, you've got a socket on the back to plug in your extension speaker, and that helps us with the test equipment. But we'll start with the power and we'll switch to picture in picture, and then you can see how many watts it's doing. So it's sat there on 19. There's the dimmer, which just dims the display. Put that on channel 20. And we'll press transmit. So on the 3 watt scale, so that means full scale deflection is 3 watts. Well, it's doing more than 3 watts. Well, that's good, isn't it? So the 4 watt position on the 30 watt scale is there. So I'll leave that there. So it's doing just over 3 watts. So that is fair enough for a GT868, but we'll nevertheless do the tune-up. I'll just move the camera across and we'll look at how the frequencies, how near that is, because it could have been rejected for being off frequency. 2779125, well, it's spot on, isn't it? That's fine. And that saves me having to go in that can and adjusting the right hand red trimmer. So let's see if we can get a little bit more power out of it. Got my eye on the time because I promised to go to London Thorpe Church, which is about 5 miles from here, where we're still installing a small pipe organ. And unfortunately I took a part into church some months ago, and whilst it was stood there waiting to be installed, mice decided to eat some of the leather work. So I had to bring it back to the workshop, and when it was in the workshop it fell over and it damaged some valve wires. So I had to order replacement valve wires to be made, and then whilst the valves were out I lost 2 of the actual valves. So I had to order some valves. I'm glad I don't tell them. I never enter into a contract on these things. I never tell them when we're going to finish. But I tell you what, we don't charge them a penny piece on any of these church organ jobs until the job is totally finished to the satisfaction of the church. So even if it's a £35,000 job, you know, we do not charge them a penny until it's finished and signed off. So nobody can say, oh, he's had all the money or he's had half the money, because he hasn't. So when I had my kitchen done this year, earlier in the year, the cheeky whatsits wanted something like 95% of the money up front. We're not getting anywhere better, are we, with this? But it doesn't matter. 3 watts is more than the minimum acceptable of 1.7. Yeah, it's doing about 3.2. Never. If there's a coil in there, never fiddle with it. It's part of the 54 meg second harmonic trap. You can end up with low power because of a duff resistor, but there's nothing. It's fine. Yeah, it's doing more. It's doing more than 3 watts. That's fine. So let's look at deviation. I've got 8 minutes, and then I've got to go. Now, we were on CPT yesterday, weren't we? With that green set. Wallow. That's spot on as well. So there's no reason for it to fail on deviation. So had we needed to adjust the deviation, it's the preset just there. And we need to just check that the power meter is reading into the strawberry patch, and it's spot on really where we want it to be, middle of the strawberry patch. I'll have to remind myself as to which preset that is, however, just to show you once again. There's SVR4 in there is the transmit meter, and at least it is a real meter, and it's a real power sense circuit, unlike the fake ones you get today. Now, low power there should switch it to 0.4 of a watt, but in actual fact it's not adjustable, and as long as it's between 0.1 and 0.5, anything goes. So I'd like it to read on here, that's 3, that's the 3 watt scale. Let's have a look. That's going to be 1 watt, that's going to be 400 milliwatts. Oops, I'm in the wrong mode. It's doing 200 milliwatts, that's fine. Switch it back to full power. So I'm satisfied the transmitter's working properly. But of course the difficult thing with these sets is those receivers. So we'll plug that into the extension speaker socket, and let's see how far my 8 minutes will take us. So we'll put the signal generator on 27.79125. So you need to clean that volume control. It's pretty dirty. I'll do the others while I'm at it. So we'll go straight up to the synod meter, because these radios don't have the normal kind of detector arrangement, and as I've said a million times before, and we've done a demonstration on the Fidelity 1000 which uses more or less the same chassis, the GT868. You're supposed to do it with a sweep generator, but it takes about 90 minutes. So we developed this method with the Synad meter, which is much quicker. When these radios were made in 1981, very few people had Synad meters. Perhaps very few people have them now. I don't go around other radio dealers seeing what they've got and what they haven't got. So, at the moment we listen to 1 microvolt, which is very good sensitivity, but that's these sets downfall because they were bleed over boxes at the time. It doesn't really matter now with lesser users, so we start off with the front end with... Is that the wrong tool? No. Okay, so I'm happy that's right. So we've got a little bit more out of it there. A bit more out of it there. Now we move on to the IF ones. So we're just going to put the signal up a bit because I'm looking for quality as well. So now I'm going to go back on those 3, looking at sensitivity. Now we'll go for a bit bigger signal again, and these 2 pesky ones, which are their detector arrangement. Take it back down to 12 and just finish them off. It's not just the Synad, it's the quality as well. Right, I'm satisfied that's now set up. So it was a bit out on the receiver. Now I can hear that at 0.06 of a microvolt. Okay, so let's get that receive meter looked at, and I put an S9 signal on the radio, and that should correspond to S9. Well, that's far too generous. It's doing plus 30. So we're looking at the meter being that lower one towards me. It won't turn down any more than that. So it's going to be a bit generous, this meter. But that's how it's designed. It's probably intended to be set at 50 microvolts rather than 100 to make the radio looks more sensitive and therefore better than it really is, though they are very sensitive. Maxon were good at doing that as well. So tell you what, we'll look at squelch. Now it's an AM squelch, and I'll just explain what I mean by that because somebody did query it. Obviously it's an FM radio, and normally on FM CB radios there's a clever IF subsystem chip, often an MC3357 by Motorola. These things contain 200 transistors. They have a built-in squelch. They're used in CB radios, other two-way radio equipment, and they're also used in hi-fi tuners. And they have an onboard squelch circuit, and it only involves half a dozen components to bring that out to the front panel and make a useful squelch control. But it's a level squelch, and that's not always the best way of doing it. It's far better to have a noise squelch, but that's more expensive to achieve, and CB radios are, of course, at the cheap end of the two-way radio market. And don't think that spending £250 on a CB radio makes it any better. It doesn't, because our experience has been of actually worse, but give you more features. So, on these radios, there is as it comes out of the IF, the signal, there is a AM detector diode. And the squelch circuit actually looks for an AM bit of the FM signal, and it works the squelch from AM. It's bizarre. It's like great who were making these things in Taiwan probably weren't very experienced at doing FM radios, and anyway, it's an AM squelch. So it's weird, and the radio sound, when we take the signal off, that's, it's not the normal FM rush that you get. Whilst the signal's off, let's just have a look at the squelch. So I'll just move the camera down to the attenuator controls. So I'm not lying to you. So we've parked it at 0.3 of a microvolt. I'm going to set the squelch to threshold. And now we'll switch the signal generator back on. And it's come straight in. So let's get a figure for that squelch. It's coming in at 0.22 of a microvolt. And it's leaving it to 0.19 of a microvolt. So let's take the squelch to the other end. We'll now turn the squelch to full. Let's see when it comes in now, because I want it to be 100 microvolts, which is equivalent of a normal S9. That's 1 microvolt, 3 microvolts, 10 microvolts. The squelch isn't strong enough, so we just need to adjust that. I think, did I say it's the one nearest? Yeah, it's the one furthest away. Now it's too strong, so we'll just pop that down again. That's it, that's how we want it. So now we'll go back to the minimum and turn the signal generator off. Set threshold, signal generator on, squelch is coming in, and it's now coming in at about 0.18 of a microvolt. It's leaving about 0.14 of a microvolt. So that's balanced it up beautifully, and that will be another reason why it was rejected, for whatever reason. I'm sure it's one we must have done before and just didn't get completed. Anyway, that's the squelch. So now let's look at the sensitivity. I'm now going to be running late, but I want to just finish this, and it won't take a jiffy. And then we'll pop it onto an aerial when I get back. Here we go. So this time it's the Gecol GT868. So we're going to do 20 dB synad, which sometimes isn't achievable because of noisy transistors. Noisy not because of faulty, but noisy because of cheap. And then there's the industry standard 12 decibel, and then there's the little cheaty 10 decibel one to make signals look better than they really are. So let's look at that synad meter once again. Somewhere up there. Right. So we're going to start with it at 20 microvolts. I'll start again. We're going to start with this for 20 dB synad. I think we can just say that's gone up a scale. It's 1.1 microvolt, which is very good actually. And now we'll look at 12 decibels, which is the industry standard. So that's about there. 0.22 microvolts. And then we're going to look at the 10 decibel GT1. And that's there. 0.18 microvolts. So it's very sensitive. And I'm sure it'll work very well around a scratchy corner. So I'm going to leave it at that. We'll pause the video and I'll come back when I've done this little organ bit more to this installation. So we've now got the radio put back together. So it just turned out to be a bit of a service on the receive side of things. I did swizzle the speaker around because the wires are always quite short on these radios, so I've had it so the connections are there, whereas when this case had been sprayed at some point the connections were there, so it's made it easy to put back together. So we'll have a quick flick round. Well, Nana Roger.
It's a beautiful day, isn't it? It's been lovely, isn't it? Yeah, it's just been the job.
Oh, well, somebody's out there. I think they're the far side of Lincoln, so they're in 30 odd miles away. I don't think they're running 4 watts though. Yeah. So Parky's on 31, ready for an on-the-air test later on. Anyway, that little bit of radio traffic on 19 at least proves. In fact, I'll pop it down to 19 and put the squelch on. And there we are. So another Sierra Hotel 1 Tango radio for Sierra Hotel 1 Tango Sunday, and yes, see how it performs. Later on the air. I mean, it's a heavy used set, so it must have been very satisfactory for somebody in the past. So thank you for watching.